think sometimes when I make a doll, I get so frustrated with the process that I look at it and I'm like not happy with it. It just it affects the whole my whole image of the doll. Well, September has arrived and it's definitely starting to feel quite autumnal here in Wales. It's been quite rainy the last few days. So this week I'm getting ready for spooky season with a little Halloween pumpkin themed doll. I have stocked up on thread. If you saw my video last week, I ran out of black top stitch thread, so I have been and stocked up, and I've gathered a few other materials together. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do for the hair yet. I've got some bamboo in a lovely bright orange and some black, so that could work quite well. But I've also got the copper coloured acrylic yarn that I used for the Dark Academia doll last week, and that might be nice too for a longer, wavier sort of style. I've already machine sewn the pieces and started stuffing them, so I'll be carrying on with that today, and I might get onto some bead jointing too, and then we'll see how we go from there. If you just found me, by the way, welcome. My name's Jo. I'm a full-time artist making creepy cute things on a narrowboat in Wales. So I've stuffed all the pieces for the body and limbs of the doll. I've picked out some antique silver effect metal beads to joint the arms and legs. I'm not going to go too much into the construction of the doll in this video. I do want to talk a little bit more about the thought processes as I'm making my doll and a little bit of the day-to-day life of living on a boat as well. Constructing the doll, sewing the pieces and stuffing them, getting the shape right, jointing them all together can take anywhere from 1 to 2 days. This is often the part that I want to get over with most, but it's also the most important part. If I don't get this bit right, then I know the rest of the doll's not going to go right. So I try and take my time and do the best that I can, so I know that I'm going to end up with a good result. I decided to give her some long boots in acrylics, so I'm painting a grey coat on first. That's just acrylic paint mixed with some fabric medium, so it sits better on the fabric. The grey coat acts as a primer, then I'll paint black on top of that to give it a nice shiny finish. I haven't really decided what kind of detail I'm going to put on these. The acrylic paint doesn't take long to dry, but I do give it a blast with a hairdryer, and that helps to fix the fabric medium too. It makes it nice and durable, so that's going to be permanent. So I finished the stuffing and the bead jointing apart from the shoulder joints. I've painted some boots in acrylics. I haven't attached the legs yet because I want to finish painting these before I do that. I'm not sure at the moment whether to make them long lace-ups or whether to paint some autumnal leaves or something on them. So that's going to happen at some point today. Button jointed the neck, and I also made a little pumpkin. I'm really pleased with this. This was quite a challenge. It's been quite a long time since I've needle felted an object. I decided on the polyester staple fibre to construct the shape, and halfway through I was kind of wishing I hadn't. Polyester is very, very dense when you needle felt it, and then it can be quite difficult to get the needles into. I do find acrylic a little bit easier for felting shapes like this, but it has worked quite well. I'm quite happy with the result of it. I used bamboo for the orange, and that's got quite a nice sheen to it. And then I used a little bit of acrylic to make the details. I started off by separating some black acrylic yarn and using the fibres to create a face for a jack-o'-lantern. I later realised that it would have been a lot easier to do the face last, but I tend to make things up as I go along. I was initially going to make the vertical lines of the pumpkin in some thread and kind of stitch through the middle of it and pull in the sides a bit to give it a bit more shape, but that didn't really work. The polyester is so dense that I couldn't get a needle through it. So instead I decided to separate some rusty coloured acrylic yarn and needle felt lines with that. And that kind of shaped it as I was felting it too, so that seemed to work a lot better. Although it was a little bit fiddly to felt it around the features on the face that I'd already felted in. For the stalk, I dug out some dark brown acrylic yarn and twisted some fibres together to kind of make a little stumpy shape, and then felted that on top. And I think the result turned out pretty cute. If you're enjoying this video, by the way, please don't forget to hit the like button and let me know. You can also subscribe if you like so you don't miss the next one. Yeah, it's pretty cute. I'm quite pleased with that. So today I need to start on the face, and I'm hoping I'll get onto the clothes at some point today as well. I want to say a massive thank you, by the way, to the people who've joined as channel members so far. I have 2 membership tiers available, one for 99p and one for $2.99. And I just found out that if you have an iPhone, you can't join on the iPhone app, which is weird. But anyway, I will leave a link in the description below, so if you can't see a join button below the video, then there will be a link there. For the basic level tier, for Spiderlings, you get some free emojis and you get some work in progress posts as well, so you get to see what I'm working on next. And if you join on the Orb Weavers tier, on the slightly higher tier, then you get some videos as well. I'm working on some more content over the next few weeks and months, so do join if you want to see what I'm up to and get some extra content. Anyway, back to the doll. As I'm going to be painting some details on the dress, I decided to leave the boots relatively plain and just make some long orange laces. I started by marking out where the laces need to go with some masking tape and then making some holes with a needle so I can just stitch through them and get them nice and even. They're giving knee-high Doc Martin vibes and I kind of love it. Before I do anything else, I want to start on the face. I want to do the eye shading and then that'll need fixing and drying while I get on with some other things. I use Derwent Chromaflow pencils to get the shading nice and smooth around the eyes. These are quite high pigment, so you get a nice dark shadow and they're easy to blend too. I use the Derwent blending pencil to smooth out the edges and get a nice smudgy line around the edge. I fix that with some artist fixative spray and then leave it to dry while I attach the legs. The hip joints don't need a bead joint, I just hinge joint them with a little stitch at each side using some top stitch thread. I don't worry about hiding stitches at this stage. She's going to have fixed clothing, so that'll hide those stitches on the sides. I chose some gunmetal finish buttons for the eyes. These are a little bit of a warmer tone than the antique silver effect ones I use sometimes, so I think they'll complement the warm autumny tones quite nicely. As usual, I'm adding some eyeliner detail in fine liner pens. I use the Derwent Line Maker pens for this. The first time I showed this process close up on a video, I got a comment asking me what I was going to do about the ink bleeding into the fabric, and I was really confused because the ink wasn't bleeding into the fabric. Looking back at it later, I realised what the commenter meant. Because it was so highly magnified, you could see the ink sitting on the weave of the fabric. When you're looking at it that close, it can make the line look a little bit uneven. This one is looking a little bit uneven as I'm working on it, but I will go back in later with a really fine pen and just smooth that off a little bit to make it look a bit more crisp. I decided to add some leaves to the vines on this one. They're kind of making them look like pumpkin leaves. And I'm using some acrylic paint to add a little bit of colour to those in green. Again, I've added some fabric medium to the acrylic, so that will be nice and permanent. I'll need to set that with a hot hairdryer, and then I need to clean up all the painting stuff and get the area ready to start sewing again. It's getting quite late now though, so I think I'll start working on the dress tomorrow. It's Monday morning now. I think I spent most of the day yesterday working on the dress. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure about the skirt when I was making it. I started out wanting to make just a pleated skirt, but it wasn't really working with this broderie anglaise. Because of the repeat of the pattern, I couldn't get the pleats too thin, and then it didn't kind of sit right around the hips. So I made it a little bit longer by sewing it onto a piece of cotton. I did make it a bit fuller at first, but then it wasn't sitting right, so I did take a little bit off it. And yeah, I think it's growing on me. Because I had an idea of what I wanted and then I couldn't achieve that, it's kind of coloured how I'm seeing it. I think sometimes when I make a doll, I get so frustrated with the process that I look at it and I'm like not happy with it. And it just it affects the whole my whole image of the doll. And I think this is something that every artist probably goes through. Then when you come to look at it, you look back at it maybe a couple of weeks later, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's actually really good. I like that. But at the time when you're struggling with something, you know, "Oh, I hate it." I am liking her a little more, and I'm sure once she's got hair and arms, I will like her a lot more. I did make her a lace petticoat as well, just to give the skirt a little bit more fullness. I'm really pleased with the pumpkin though. I started painting the design on the front of the dress with a couple of coats of Naples yellow mixed with some fabric medium to give a nice light coloured base that I can paint onto. Once that was dry, then I started building up layers of colour and texture, adding detail little by little until I was happy with the effect. Painting in acrylics is fun for me. I absolutely love the medium. I have done some paintings on canvas and wood panels in the past. I'd love to do some more of those, but living on the boat, I just don't have enough space. My living and working area is basically a 6-foot cube, so there isn't really anywhere to put easels and have big canvases propped up drying everywhere. Maybe in the future, if I have a larger art studio to work in, then I could do some more painting. In the meantime though, painting little details and motifs like this on dolls helps to scratch that acrylic painting itch. That actually came out a lot better than I was expecting. So I'll have to think about what to do for a necklace. I was going to use a pumpkin charm, but looking at it now, I think it's going to kind of fight with the design on the dress. I think there needs to be one focal point, and that's going to just draw attention away from the focal point. So I'll probably do something a little bit more simple for the necklace, maybe some glass beads or something like that. For the hair, I think I'm going to use some of the same acrylic yarn that I used for my Dark Academia doll last week. I think she needs a big wavy hairstyle. I think she needs a fringe as well, because I was really pleased with how Beatrice's fringe turned out last week. Though Beatrice had like a shorter bob, I think this one is going to have a long hairstyle. Might plait it, might leave it down. Going to see how it looks. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm hoping to get her completed today. I do have some boat jobs to get on with in between working on the doll. My water tank's empty. One of the challenges with living and working on a boat is I don't have an endless supply of water or a toilet that can be flushed and just automatically takes everything away. Once every week or so, I have to connect up the hose pipe to a tap on the towpath and sit on the front of my boat on the bow, which is over there. It means climbing around the gunnel, which is the little step bit around that goes around the outside of the boat, to climb around there and put the hose pipe into a tank at the front and sit there and wait for it to fill up. A lot of boats have an overflow, so you can just leave it filling and go and do other things. Mine doesn't, so if I don't watch it, it can overflow and then it floods the boat. So these are the challenges that come with boat life. Should have done this yesterday, but it was raining really heavily all day and I didn't fancy sitting up there in the rain, in the thunderstorm. So that will be done today. And hopefully I'll have time to finish her, and then tomorrow I can take some photographs and get her up for sale on the website. So better get on with it. I love sitting up on the front of the boat on days like this when there's still a bit of warmth in that September sun. I can see all the fish swimming around in the water beneath me and the birds flitting about in the trees. It gives me time to contemplate what I'm making next and make plans for my art. Zoning out and watching nature helps to get the creative brain going. As I'm turning off the tap and putting the hose away, it's just starting to rain again. It's amazing how quickly the weather changes here in Wales. I still have some boat jobs to do, like emptying the toilet cassette, and also the chimney needs cleaning before the weather starts to get really cold again. But I can do the rest of the essential jobs when it stops raining again later, and the chimney can wait for another day. I needle felt the hair with the clover pen style tool and some 38 gauge needles. Starting at the front with some shorter strands to create a fringe, and then I work around the hairline before filling it in the middle. Just building up strands of yarn layer by layer until I've covered the whole scalp. Once it's all felted in, then I can brush it all out, then it'll just need a bit of a trim to tidy it up a bit. I picked up a handful of fallen leaves as I was out on a walk yesterday, so those will be perfect for setting up an autumn scene for the photos. These colours are amazing. I've named this little one Emily Lanternfire. If you've made it this far into the video, leave me some pumpkin emojis in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, I'm going to leave another one on screen now that I think you're going to enjoy. I made a dark academia doll, including a book and a satchel.